Welcome to the Evolution Revolution podcast. I'm Mark Johnston. In this podcast, we explore stories of resilience, reinvention, and finding the warrior within. Great example, our first episode, Gordon McDonald, former Australian paramilitary trooper, long-distance cyclist, mountaineer, elite athlete, and father of two. And at one point, health goes off the rails. Double amputation, and yet he leads 100 people up a mountain in Poland with his mentor, Wim the Iceman Hof. Let's see how he did it.
Every episode, we bring you remarkable humans doing remarkable things, and we could not start off this venture in episode 1 with a more perfect guest, my brother, my friend, my warrior on the journey on this lifetime, Gordon McDonald. Gordon, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
I look forward to a great conversation, and man, you have had quite a journey, Gordon, so it couldn't be more perfect to start off this series with your journey, your message. And I like to start every episode with this question, Gordon: where you are at this time in your evolution, what is your message to the world?
Oh, that's a tough one right off the bat, mate. I did have a minute to think about it, and I would say the path less trodden most times is the correct path, meaning the path that takes you from your comfort zone.
Beautiful, beautiful, Gordon. That's powerful. This question for me really takes you to a deep place right off the bat. And then we get to backtrack to understand your story, how you got to this place where you're able to share this message with the world. Now, I'm in Canada currently. I know you're down under in Australia, having recently moved back to Australia from Vancouver. Things are settling in well there where you're at with family's good?
We are, mate. Family's great. I'm so stoked to be back. It almost feels like the time we moved here in 1975. Yeah, loving it.
I'm glad to hear. My best to the family. And I'll say this, Gordon, knowing you as many years as I have, living out in Vancouver, when we were both there, you've always been an inspiration to me. Your journey, just pushing yourself to the limit. I know that's a big part of your history and your modus operandi, where you always find a new challenge, Gordon. And boy, have you been through some challenges, mate. And all this to say, fast forward many years from when you were first born to climbing a mountain in Poland with the great Wim Hof, your mentor, the breathing expert, ice cold temperature advocate, bringing down inflammation. This man has made quite a mark in his own right on the planet, and I understand he's made a major impact in your life. So we'll get to that moment just a bit down the road here, but I want to start with the beginning of your story, because you currently walk the earth in beauty, as we've said before, and you have two beautiful prosthetic legs, Gordon. And I think you are an image maker, man. Like, you teach people every day. So we're going to get through all that as we go through this journey with you. But let's start way back at the very beginning and tell me a bit about your childhood.
Childhood, not so good. Childhood, I grew up in Lancashire, Britain. I was quite bullied by older kids for quite a long time, till I was 7. And I think that shaped me in a somewhat negative way. Became quite inhibited and quite a bit of a loner. But then moving to Australia in 75, which seemed like I could start a new identity. The place was so raw back in 75, so many opportunities. Yeah, I felt like I was re-identifying in that point, and without the history of my surroundings and the bullying. How far do we want to go here? How long?
We're going to do about a good half-hour chat here, but I would say, Gordon, just the top notes from what comes to mind when you think about your childhood. That would be my guide, is what comes to the forefront of your mind when I say, tell me about your childhood.
Yeah, that would have been as far as, but what age you want me to take it to?
Then we're going to move into your teen years as well. As you grew up, from childhood into teens, as your personality's developing and you're starting to reach out into the world and build a bit of a community in your own journey, how were teenage years for you?
A bit of a black sheep, I would say. My family, although I was raised in unconditional love, my mother always bestilled in us that we were always loved no matter what. She would said she'd never hide the body, but she would support us no matter what we had done, even if it was wrong. So I did feel supported from my family, but I felt like a black sheep. I always felt like something different. I didn't really want the traditional. So I found my way into martial arts. That was, I guess I was beaten up quite badly as a teenager, even in Australia. So that shaped me as far as I had enough. So I joined a few styles of martial arts. which led me to the military, which I, again, was a re-identifying myself again from a civilian to a military. So I chose the most badass path, which is a paratrooper. I couldn't do a more badass job than a paratrooper, which, again, that re-identifying again, made some brilliant friends, and met my partner to be.
Can I ask you a quick question here, Gordon, just for our audience, those that may not know, what is a paratrooper exactly in the military?
So a paratrooper it would be infantry, so the foot soldier, but they were inserted by parachuting. So as an infantry soldier, you would parachute into an airport, take over the airport, and that led the rest of the army to come in and take over said country. So the paratrooper usually, besides the SAS, were the first in, as far as a battalion goes. So we were, we did everything that an infantry soldier to do, but we'd parachute in.
I've seen a couple of photos from your journey where the back of the plane is wide open, of course, and you're just about to slip out. And that must be an incredibly invigorating, terrifying, and exciting moment when you're actually making that jump.
Yeah, terrifying was the word. It's a funny thing. I guess, until my later part of my life that I learned all the real lessons and the real motivations. At that time, doing things terrifying was key to me growing up. Not necessarily in my advice to the world as choose the path less trodden. For me, the path trodden was always the hard way. It was always what maybe challenging my fears was my motivations always. Climbing, I took up climbing when I came to Canada. So anything that instilled this great sense of fear that I could overcome was my motivation. And as I was saying later on, that not necessarily was the correct path for me. That was the path I chose.
Right on. And I know you met your beautiful wife during those days. I believe you met in Korea. So you definitely have had some global experiences and met the love of your life, two beautiful kids that are now with you in Australia as well. And having gotten to know you in Vancouver, Gordon, we met in production. You were working on one of my former TV series and really impressed everybody with the quality of your work, your integrity, your focus, your intent. And I know that's a universal theme in your life from everything I've understood. And we've cycled together. I remember with the Ride to Conquer Cancer many years ago now, you and I and David Way got on a bike and 3 bikes, and we rode across the US border, ended up getting down to Seattle. And this is always a moment for me when I remember you cycling past, right? So for those who maybe aren't the long distance cyclists out there, when you're outputting that much energy, you need to basically hoover in as many calories as you can along the way. And so I remember Gordon stopping at the snack spot in the morning ride, just wolfing down as many bars and such as I could. And I see you cycling by because you're a very avid athlete and you were cycling with one leg. And if I remember correctly, I looked at the guy next to me and said, "Look at this hot shot showing off that he can ride with one leg." And then I finally, of course, caught up with you way down the route. And I said, "Come on, man, that's just not necessary showing off like that." And what was your response at the time? Because there was something else going on, Gordon.
It's funny you say that, how you saw me. I remember seeing you. I remember hearing you pulling into the first hotel to get yourself a towel because you hadn't brought one.
Story of my life. Story of my life. But
Yeah.
you definitely, that was a moment, I guess, 2008, 2009, where things were starting to happen for you in a different way.
Yeah, it was early on that I was doing a lot of hiking and realized that I hadn't had much output for my left leg. So I took up cycling and again, was pushing myself harder to try and figure what was happening. And I just thought I was getting lazy. But yeah, at that point, I think I'd had the diagnosis that I had some neurological issues. And so the one leg was because cycling with one leg was because of I had severe nerve damage in my left leg at that time. And the big, although again, cycling the 250 Ks that we did was a challenge that I chose to do because that wasn't, again, it was really challenging. So that's why I took it on. But yeah, that was the beginning of the beginning of the diagnosis of the beginning of the incorrect diagnosis of, at that point, was called multifocal motor neuropathy, which was the immune system would attack my own nerves and eat the myelin sheath. And at that point, my whole left leg
Mm-hmm.
had been, the nerves of the left leg basically were eaten, and it was becoming less and less powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was the first chapter of what I know is a long journey, Gordon, through various diagnoses and what the treatment trajectory should be. But let's keep on this path and move on to the next part of this journey, the next chapter in this. From that moment, where did things go for you?
From the cycling, it just basically, as far as the diagnosis, the severity of the nerve damage increased from my left leg to my right leg to my hands to my back to my stomach, basically my whole body. The peripheral nerves, anything with a motor function was being affected. And so I kept the cycling up. At that point, I thought I could cure by anger, by aggression,
Yeah.
and by training. So I trained harder
Mm-hmm.
to think that I could overcome this diagnosis. So I thought I'd beat it by being more severe, by being trained harder.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was harder and
Mm-hmm.
more aggressive, which didn't actually work. So
Wow. Yeah.
I was on a treatment from the hospital, but at that point still I didn't realize that I was wrongly diagnosed. So I found I
Mm-hmm.
was progressively getting worse and worse. So I used cycling as an outlet back then. It was to swear at the world and my fuck you kind of thing, with my chance to be alone and alone with the disease. And
Mm-hmm.
so then I did a series of alternate treatments. I did a lot of naturopathics, and then I did a lot of injections, thousands and thousands of needles,
Mm-hmm.
multiple supplements and multiple IVs,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the traditional treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Again, nothing was really working. It
Yeah.
was progressive.
Gordon, it's always fascinating to me to hear in your own words how this journey unfolded for you. But I remember one of the lines you shared, and I know you have a great documentary that's been pulled together and will be out in the world soon, called One More Step, the Gordon McDonald story. And I look forward to the world knowing your journey in a beautiful way. But you once shared that it was like, I think the words were 1,000 hornets stinging you over a period of time. That's the kind of pain you were going through.
Yeah, I like math, so I couldn't help but count. And I think it was at that point you have 7 trillion nerves in your body that are available to you. And at that point, I was getting 1,000 hornet stings every 24 hours. And so my brain was saying so 1,000 nerves. It was like I say, if you elastic band and you snap it, that would be the nerve
Mhm.
getting dissolved. And so I would be
Yeah.
counting them always in my brain, 1,000 to, so, up to 50,000, so every single day was 1,000. I was assuming 1,000 nerves were being dissolved. So although it was very painful, so that went on for 10 months of that kind of pain, 1,000 hornet stings every single day. It was also distressing because that's how many nerves are getting dissolved. And at the same point, there was a thing, it's called a fasciculation. It's when it's like a slight tremor. And so they would happen all over your body, including your face and your eye and everywhere in your body would be a tremor. That was also a sign that there's nerves damage happening there. And some of those were eight every second. So I would be counting them all day as well. So I'd be counting the stings, and I'd be counting it, and then I'd be dividing them by 7 trillion and thinking that's how long I got left.
Yeah. Wow, Gordon, it's hard to get my head around that you're experiencing this in the moment and how you're tracking it and you're not fully clear on where things are going. The uncertainty, that part speaks to me, the uncertainty of not knowing. What was that like for you?
Yeah, for me, that was actually the hardest part, is not having a definitive plan that would get better. I was always searching that's why I did lots of the naturopathics, and you would think you were on the right path. That was going to be the cure. That was going to be the cure. This is going to be the cure. And I think the fact of not knowing, am I going to get better? That was always the hardest part. Is being in limbo and watching yourself dissolve every single day. And every morning I'd get a check. I'd wake up, and when I'd wake up, I can't even do it now, but I would try to click my fingers. You know, where you snap your fingers.
Mhm.
So I would
Yeah.
try to snap my fingers, and that would be a gauge on how much more I lost. I can't. This is me clicking my
Wow.
fingers now. But
Yeah,
but
brother.
every morning,
Wow.
we click, and then it would get the sound would get less and less. So that would be the morning ritual I would do, which would be the worry for the day.
Gordon, when you say morning ritual, what comes to mind for me is that first cup of coffee or taking the husky out for a walk, morning ritual. And here you are gauging your body in terms of where am I on the spectrum.
Mm.
But let's talk about the dynamic of relationships too, Gordon, because as you're going through this, and obviously talk about evolution, you've come to a completely different place today. And we want to explore some of that too, including climbing a mountain with Wim Hof himself. That your relationship with your beautiful wife and your kids and people close to you, how did this experience, how did this evolution impact your relationships? It clearly would impact more than just you.
Yeah, lots. I remember actually the first day on set with you on the new show. I remember at that point I had an ALS diagnosis, which that was a fatal diagnosis within maybe a few years. I remember the
Mhm.
first client that we had asked me how excited I must be on the show. And I just pretended and said yes, but inside I didn't know whether I was going to finish your show. So I hit a deep frightening of where the possibilities could be. And yeah, that I
Yeah.
held a lot back from my wife Erin. And at that point I had a 6-month-old child and a 3-year-old child. And I was a pretty involved
Hmm.
dad. So yeah, it affected my whole family. I know it affected my wife more so as time went on,
Hmm.
because she bear the weight of it, of the possibilities as well.
Hmm. I know, and in your documentary, which, by the way, the great actress and human potential advocate Lindsay Wagner herself, who of course played the Bionic Woman, narrates your story, Gordon, and that it's such a poignant element to your project that you openly share with the world what your experience, what your journey, and what your lessons have been. And I think that's always something to pull out of the dark, right? The idea of we go through adversity, we go through challenge, we go through conflict, confrontation, and often not good surprises. And yet somehow the human spirit is able to drive us forward. And that's really where the podcast was born, this idea of that we are in an evolution revolution. That humans, I remember when your story first came forward for me, Gordon, I remember thinking this cat could teach anybody in the world based on your journey. It might not be the same as someone else's, but you could teach someone how to put a drink down if they're drinking too much alcohol. You could teach somebody who, God forbid, has lost a child and that grief, because you found a place within yourself, in my opinion, where you found the chops. You're like, I have a choice here. I could give in or I could find a way to keep moving forward, Gordon. And your beautiful evolved self walking the planet in the way that you do today is a testament to a human being saying, I choose to move forward, brother. And you'll always be an inspiration to me for that. Let's move on and talk about the darkness. Where was the darkest part of your journey? Because clearly you live a vibrant, rich, and beautiful life today.
Mm.
But where was the darkest, the lowest?
Yeah, there are many dark times, I guess. Uh, in the beginning, I think it was the darkest. Of trying so hard and not making a difference, and still progressively getting worse. My darkest were I definitely I thought about suicide in the beginning, although that was
Mm.
it's not in my character. I did think about, but what I actually did do was I did not take myself out of harm's way. It would tense up and say, "Bring it on." And so I found myself
Mhm.
sitting under a coconut, but I didn't understand the message behind this infliction, and it really pissed me off. I remember
Mm.
darkest times was in an all-inclusive in Mexico, and I was sitting under a coconut tree going, "I fucking dare you. Drop a coconut on my head." I'd read that people had been killed by a random coconut falling on their head. And I'm sitting under a coconut tree
Mhm.
saying, "Come on, I dare you, come on."
Mhm.
And riding my
Mhm.
cycle saying, "Come on, I dare you," talking to whoever,
Mhm.
but daring it because I didn't what this was all about. I felt, if you want to take
Yeah.
me out, then take me out. So I'd say that
Mm-hmm.
They were my darkest thoughts, but it was talking to an external force saying, if this is what's for me, then bring it on. Yeah,
Yeah.
not nice.
Yeah. Talk about it. I hear that, but coming from the background you do and being in the military and all the training you have, I can get my head around that. But when you say you didn't understand the message behind the infliction, tell me more about that.
Not to say that I deserved it or I just didn't I always had a reason. I always had, yeah, I didn't understand. It was like it didn't how it didn't fit what I had planned for my life. I thought I was going to do great things physically. I'd had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ambitions to do great things physically. And so
Mm-hmm.
all these things that I'd envisioned in my future were gone. And they were, and just
Mm-hmm.
walking and talking became a hardship. And I liked myself even less. So I always
Mm-hmm.
had a good physique and I always was good at everything I've done. And this was all getting taken away. And it wasn't really until my time with Wim that I got to look in the mirror. So I guess before Wim, I guess I should say that my beautiful wife found an amazing treatment by the famous Dr. Burt, which was I became number 69 in the world to get a stem cell transplant, which again was a really risky treatment, but it fit that part of my
Mm-hmm.
nature that was the challenge, and it was a success. It really,
Yeah.
the disease was cured. They don't like to say that, but
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
pains and the debilitation ceased, although I was left with a lot of damage. But after that, I
Mm-hmm.
still didn't find any message in that. Although I was cured, I was left
Yeah.
in a wheelchair and limp. It wasn't until
Mm-hmm.
you and I went and saw Wim many times that he actually put the mirror in front. And it gave me a much deeper understanding of my motivation throughout my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
The reasons that I did these things, the challenging things, the hard things, even the army, the climbing the mountains, and wasn't for me. That was the easy path. Doing those things was the trodden path. The less trodden path was this doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I avoided this like a plague. I would have sooner put 10 stitches in myself than talk on the phone. So it was a giant mirror, which, if I can say it now, it came down to the lack of self-love, all of it. And
Mm-hmm.
through all these accolades, through all the things I've done, we're trying to get external gratitude or external pats on the back, which only lasted just a few seconds. I climb a mountain and everyone, oh, wow, you're amazing, which I didn't think myself, but somebody else would say I was
Mm-hmm.
amazing, which gave me this little boost for just 5 seconds. And then I'd be on looking for the next physicality, something which really deep down, it was about self-love. It wasn't about. So I guess that's why I took the disease so hard, is because it made me love myself even less because of how I ended up.
Brother, Gordon, there's some universal elements here you're sharing with our audience, that self-love is something so many humans take either so long to discover or sadly never discover it. And the fact that you've come through so much and come out the other side with a sense of self-love is such a beacon for the world, because we're all going through so much right now these days. And a teacher of mine once said, can you imagine if we were all our own warriors? Can you imagine what the world would be like in that space? And I think you are a warrior, clearly, in many ways, Gordon. And you mentioned the stem cell replacement. I often say Gordon whittled away to 90 pounds, because there's that remarkable image of you in the lotus position with the garb around you, but you look like a completely different entity.
Mm.
And to your point, the stem cell for our audience is my understanding that it helps your system reboot, that ideally it forgets it had a disease. And this is the case for you because your body started to come back, but your feet didn't respond. And that's a turning point, I know, because that is incredibly frustrating to see this progress, but not have that same response from your feet. And ultimately, you advocated to have your feet below the shins amputated.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I have this correctly, but the response you often got from the medical community was, we don't do elective double amputation. It's just not done. But you ultimately won your argument and had the procedure. And I remember you calling me in Arizona saying, MJ, they said yes. And you were so excited about this amputation. That's when the story started to unfold for the documentary. So that turning point, that moment in the hospital where you basically had this evolution at your own choice,
Mhm.
what was that like?
Yeah, I do recall that moment actually, Mark. Yeah, for me, that's what the doctor said to me. Gordon, you walked in here and you want me to cut off both of
Mm-hmm.
your feet. So yeah, it was a very nicely, but yeah, that was a tough argument to win. It took a few years, and even my transplant
Mm-hmm.
doctor, he had something to say about that
Mm-hmm.
as well. But at that point, I was 50 plus, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really have another 8 years to see if my legs were going to come back. So I did electively amputate them. I did my research,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, I thought I could. At that point, I was in a wheelchair, and everyone's bum height. I wanted a bit more, and I actually didn't like
Mm-hmm.
myself. I found it hard to love myself in that state.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel like I had more in me. I felt I had more opportunity than I
Mm-hmm.
would do if I'd stayed there. So it did take I
Yeah.
didn't do it blatantly. I did a lot of research and to to see how my life would change if I got a double amputation. And at that point, I still was in a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
pain from my feet. I electively got them amputated, and I remember you coming and visit me in hospital. I remember putting my hands across the front of my shins, saying that was the weirdest feeling ever, being able to pass your hands through your shins. I remember you asked me, "What's it feel?"
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying that. And
Yeah.
soon after, was fitted with the prosthetic legs and was standing again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was another nice journey.
What a beautiful evolution, Gordon. That is something every human could take a lesson from, that you stood for your own belief system. You persevered to a point where you evolved. And this is the purpose of our podcast, is this evolution revolution. And I remember in that the moment in the hospital in the recovery room, you said, it feels like I haven't moved in yet. Those were your
Mm.
words as you were waving your hand below your shin, and Aaron beside you in tears of joy, because and that was the part that got me, was these two humans are, it was like it's Christmas morning, just having had this amputation. Now, this is a turning point for you. You now have, not long after that, these two, I call them these two sexy blades. The fact that we are where we are as a species, that we are able to evolve in a variety of ways, and that you've done this, brother. You walk the earth in a beautiful way with these two beautiful prosthetics. And ultimately, we go to Poland. And not only did you train with Wim Hof himself, the Iceman, and his team, jumping into freezing cold mountain streams, etc., doing the breathing techniques, the warrior pose, but the team decides that you're to lead pretty well 100 humans up this mountain climb. You were and I remember the gentleman who was leading the training said, you will be the pace setter because you are a warrior of warriors, Gordon. And what a beautiful journey that was. So tell me about that experience, maybe just briefly, climbing this mountain with people following you as a leader of the pack and getting to the top.
Yeah, that was big. Was a lot of stress involved in there because I'd got the legs, but I think you and we'd gone on a couple of 1 kilometer hikes. That's about all we'd ever done. I
Yeah.
remember you filming me down that hill near the river,
Yeah.
and I could barely climb up it. Yeah, being leading the
Mhm.
pack, that was a lot of stress. But the beautiful thing is, my group had said I had a lot of fears behind holding people back and not allowing other people to fulfill their journey, because we were all there for a different reason. I didn't want to steal everybody
Yeah.
else's journey, so I was hoping that wouldn't happen. But everyone made it quite clear that we were all good. That was only a little mountain compared to mountains in the past. But that mountain, for me, I think that was the turning point for all my lessons in my life. I'd never reached my absolute. I'd never taken my body, even when it was physically well, even in the army. I'd never reached this
Mhm.
place where I had no more. I'd always had reserve. Even in the hardest thing I've ever done, I'd always had a reserve there left, some little extra to get me back or to do something else.
Mhm.
And on this little mountain, I actually spent every single piece of me to where we stopped, I think 40 meters from the destination. And Wim had said, "Hey, let's
Mhm.
go over here and take this picture." And I said, "If I go over there, I'm not going anywhere else." I actually had reached my, there wasn't another step left. And for me to
Mhm.
even say that was a big deal, to say, no, I can't go any further. And then the next thing I remember was waking up on the step of the destination and just seeing black and faces coming in, and you and Mark, Kevin, and Lawrence and Brian helping
Yeah.
me upstairs. That was, so I actually, for me, it was a really great thing. I'd tried till I had nothing left, which was a big deal in your late 50s to actually find that place.
Mhm. I hear you, brother. And that was quite a moment for us to witness a human completely and utterly and wholly spent, that there wasn't a drop of energy left in you. And obviously, there's a bit of recovery time. You rested a bit, and ultimately, you came back down the mountain arm in arm with two wonderful brothers of yours from that trip. And I remember chatting with you afterwards in the chalet, and you said, I have discovered self love. There's something in that experience, that journey, that you found your own worthiness, Gord. And I think that is something the world needs more of, brother. So I love that you can share this story with the world in such a beautiful way, because you are a teacher through this experience. And now life is flourishing for you. You conquered the mountain and you discovered yourself, and you continue to do remarkable things. And you're keeping yourself quite busy. You've moved back home to Australia. I know there's a whole new chapter starting for you. Um, and I'll never forget the moment in Vancouver when you once told me, because originally you had this concept of the title of The Man in the Red Shoes, because I remember you specifically chose a certain patina of red on your Puma shoes because you said, I feel I need to tell my story to help others. And you would go down to a Starbucks or a coffee shop and you would cross your legs and you would just bounce your leg and wait. I remember you saying, and sooner or later, often a little one, a child would make a comment. And at one point, a little boy saying, Mom, is that a cyborg? And the mom apologizing to you. And you said, No, this is about a conversation. I'm happy to share this. And for you to have that kind of motivation, Gordon, and not only are you a parent, but you are a teacher for others. And you have kept yourself busy since this remarkable climb, and that you are finding new skills. So tell me what excites you today on the other side of this evolution.
Hmm. I will first add that the self-love, it doesn't just, you don't just, for me, I find it ongoing. It's not something I wake up in the
Mhm.
morning, I look in the mirror and say, fuck, I love you, man. I find it's still ongoing. It's something that's
Mhm.
still going to be forever. But I'm aware of it. And when I make a decision, I
Mhm.
always make sure, is it kind? Is it with love
Yeah.
for me? So
Mhm.
it's not coming naturally. It's something I still work on. And as far as the legs,
Thank you.
um, I find it's this leveler. I'm loving it. In Australia here, some of my richest moments are with people showing me compassion. I just can't believe
Mm.
the people that I've met, strangers, homeless people that will call me brother. And recently, we went to one of my friends from the army invited me to the minimum weight world title, Alex Winwood. And we went and watched this young
Mm.
star fight this battle. An amazing athlete. He did lose the fight, but he lost it was an amazing fight. And right at the end of the fight, there was quite a stadium to walk out. And it was like
Mm.
maybe 20 tiers of stairs to walk out with no balcony. So for me, I had to use the chairs all the way up. My daughter said she saw these two fellas at the top of the stairs. One of them just shook his head and looked down, and they both these two gentlemen in their 30s walked down about 15 flights of stairs and then met me and says, "Can we help you, brother?" And they both got me by the arms and carried me up the stairs, and it was like the most touching to even accept their help. Again, there was more of the self-love, but that was the things like that happen all the time, and I'm not sure if it's their opportunity or mine, but I think we both come out enriched from the experience.
Gordon McDonald, you are an inspiration, brother. Always have been, always will be. And what a beautiful way to launch a podcast called The Evolution Revolution, because you are the living proof that we live in choice each and every day, Gordon. And I've learned so much from you over the years. I know your two beautiful children grow with that constant guidance and teaching from you and Aaron. And your documentary, One More Step, the Gordon McDonald story, will be out soon. I know that will change lives because of the lessons you teach in the way that you do so organically and with love and with transparency, Gordon. I'm going to say thank you, brother. You know I love you. And you're the best first guest we could ever have on a podcast called The Evolution Revolution, brother. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you for your time.
Oh, Mark, I love you too, man. Thank you so much for this privilege. And thanks for your support for all these years. What a journey, eh, brother?
What a journey, brother. All the best to you and my love to the family. And we'll talk to you soon.
We'll hopefully see you soon too, brother.
You got it. That's a date. And I want to thank our audience for joining us. And this is the first episode